So yes, I'm a dating and relationship coach, and yes, I'm single right now. And I wanted to talk about that, what that means for me, how it connects with my work as a coach, and how we as a community often think about singlehood, whether it's chosen or not. Hey, and welcome back to the Better Gay Dating podcast, the podcast about the art and science of finding deeper connection as men who date men. My name is Ed. I'm a dating and relationship coach for gay and bi men. Because it's a question I get from time to time. What's my relationship status? And if I'm not in a long-term relationship right now, how does that impact my ability to talk about love and connection? Or as people sometimes phrase it, is this all a scam? Is there something fundamentally wrong with me? Is love really just hopeless after all? So firstly, no to all of the above, and no, being in a long-term relationship isn't a requirement for being a great relationship coach, and that's simply because coaching is a skill. Just like your therapist doesn't need to have lived your exact life to help you process it, what makes a coach effective is their listening skills, their ability to help you spot patterns you haven't noticed yet, and how well they can help you move towards whatever it is that you want. And so, that usually does mean that relationship coaches are more skilled and self-aware about building connections in our own lives than average. But as I'll talk about later, being ready and open to connection doesn't guarantee that the right partner will walk through the door tomorrow. And there is a common misunderstanding that coaching is just about saying, I have a thing, work with me and you too will get that thing. And in a sense, it is true. If you want to expand your ability to make deeper, meaningful connections or heal from past experiences, or just get that vital clarity and self-awareness on what you want and need in your relationships, they are things that I've personally done that I also walk clients through on a weekly basis. But coaching is not just about walking people down the exact path that you've been on or the path that was right for you. We'd be really limited in what we could do as coaches if that was true. Because a big part of being a skilled relationship coach is being able to work with people in all kinds of situations, whether they're single, partnered, or going through a breakup. So whatever relationship status we currently have, we're always working with people in a different phase in their lives. In my case, I am actively dating at the moment. I'll talk a bit more about that later. And I have also been in a handful of relationships. And all of that obviously hugely informs the work I do as a coach too. But we also get good at learning what's universal and universally applicable about these experiences. So again, we can help people in their specific situations. And something I just want to say in general, because I know this comes up for a lot of other relationship coaches I know too, is that we are often willing to share details about our own lives, but at the same time, we're also entitled to our private lives too. In sessions, I generally am pretty open if someone has a question about any times I might have been in a similar situation, and if so, how I navigated it. But equally, whether it's in a session on this podcast or elsewhere, this is always a choice, not an obligation. So I just ask you to bear that in mind when it comes to all of this. That said, I did want to share a few things about my personal life right now, some of the challenges that come with it, and where I'm at when it comes to dating and relationships today. So let's talk about that. So one big factor for me is that I've spent really most of my adult life either living nomadically or moving between countries for a few different reasons, but that obviously has impacted my lifestyle both day to day and longer term. Because while I was a digital nomad for a few years before I moved to Barcelona, I actually during that time did make a handful of meaningful romantic connections, but the long-term potential obviously was limited by my lifestyle at the time. And again, as much as being a coach means you have all these tools for navigating dating confidently and authentically, that doesn't mean you can just snap your fingers and the perfectly matched partner will appear. So I also find the apps draining sometimes. I get frustrated about how rare genuine deeper connection can be in our dating culture. And I also feel disappointed when I make a connection that seems promising, but the timing isn't right, or he lives too far away, or he's just not ready for something long term for whatever reason. And as my friends will tell you, I'm not shy about approaching someone I think looks fun or interesting. I'm not afraid of opening up vulnerably and meaningfully to others, and I don't have unrealistic standards about what's out there. Because that's kind of the thing for me at this point. I have experienced what mutual, safe, and secure love feels like. I know I'm able to offer it, and I know when I'm being offered it. And that's really the crux here. I'd rather be single until I find that next really aligned connection that will fulfill me in the ways I need and the ways I know I can reciprocate. And because I know it exists, this is about self-awareness and self-respect, not avoidance or fantasy or anything like that. Because really, as I talk about with clients a lot, this is a strength. If you're looking for something long-term, it's nearly always better to be single and ready for the right connection than attached to someone you know isn't the right partner and have to go through a whole separation and reset period before you are ready for the right person. Because yeah, I would rather be partnered than single, honestly. I live a very full and fun life and have some really incredible friends, but I'd also love the stability and support of a long-term relationship and be able to be that person for someone else also. And actually this year I've made at least 3 connections that had longer term potential, but at least for now, timing or distance meant they weren't viable. One guy I met online, one I met at the beach, another on a night out. But at the same time, a lot of this is about making peace with luck and things you can't control, and about trusting when you have done the work and that when it clicks, the wait will have been worth it. But for me, it's also been about seeing how you show up in dating as its own kind of success. So I'm talking about things like the ability to tell aligned and not aligned connections apart quickly, to build deep connections with the people you are aligned with, or just how you navigate all kinds of relationship situations, whether things go exactly the way you want or not. And actually on the subject of alignment, there are 2 big things I've been sitting with a lot recently that I'd love to share with you. One was really taking ownership of the self-development work I've done over the past few years and accepting that being with someone who's also built a similar level of emotional maturity and self-awareness really is a need and not a luxury. You know, I've always been someone who cares about personal and emotional growth, but working as a coach obviously does push you to an even higher level here, of course. But yeah, there was a time when I wondered whether this meant I could only ever date another coach or therapist or whatever. But it's not that at all. I realized it just meant being with someone who's also ready to show up with the intention, self-awareness, and vulnerability needed to create the kind of depth and security I'm looking for in a relationship. Not someone who's perfect or even 100% healed. That doesn't exist. Just someone ready and willing to show up to build something meaningful together. So yeah, I've reached a point where I'm not interested in dating without any goal or intentions, just to see what happens. And I've got to a point where if someone really struggles to communicate or can't organize themselves enough to spend time together to actually get to know each other, I'm just going to wish them well and move on. And yeah, this is exactly how to approach building intentional and deeply aligned connections. But as I talk about with clients a lot, it often does feel disconcerting because you end up filtering out people a lot sooner. So it can feel like you're doing something wrong when really you're just honoring what a strong connection needs and letting people who can't offer that fall away. And sure, there is a sweet spot here. It is possible to over-filter, but if you are filtering mismatched partners out effectively, you are saving yourself a lot of time and a lot of heartbreak, which again is an advantage because it means you're ready when the right connection comes along. The other thing I've been conscious of a lot recently is how important it is to me to be with someone who fully gets and supports me in this creative and non-traditional life I've chosen, or the life that chose me. That's kind of up for debate. But yeah, as you might know, I live a very full life, not just as a coach, but as a writer, musician, and entrepreneur. And a huge realization I had a few months back was that of the handful of really strong and mutual connections I've made in my life, they all just really got that. You know, I really love the aliveness that comes with being a creative artist and entrepreneur. That's really why I do it, and why of the 1,000 times I could have switched paths to something more regular and more stable, I haven't. And actually, of the handful of guys I've really clicked with or connected with deeply throughout my life, this is pretty much the only thing they've had in common, aside from the emotional maturity I was talking about before. It was really that they thought the path I've chosen or that chose me was interesting or cool or really just worthwhile. And equally, whatever their lives looked like, the feeling was mutual. And so we both sort of met and fed each other in that way. Because yeah, I have been on dates with people who've said things like, why would you do all of that when it's clearly stressful and you could have an easier life and make a lot more money if you did whatever other thing. And I've also met plenty of people who were intrigued by what I do as an abstract concept, but didn't really know how to relate to me as the person in the middle of this, who is also human and flawed and sometimes gets stressed or overwhelmed by it all and needs some support. And I think for a long time, finding this aliveness with a partner also felt like a nice to have for me. But what I've realized is that for something long term, it really is a non-negotiable. It's really hard for me to share my life fully with someone who just doesn't get this huge and significant part of who I am. And I also realized that whenever this has been there, the connection has made me feel fulfilled and alive to the point that I just didn't care about letting go of some of my nice to haves because my key non-negotiables were covered. So this isn't about saying that I'm a unique snowflake and nobody ever gets me. It's not about that at all. And it doesn't make me any harder to love than anyone else, but it does mean that the kind of person I tend to click deeply with is rare in our community. And what nobody really tells you is that realizing something like this is often deeply freeing, but it's also hard in some ways. You know, if you do crave the safety and support of a long-term connection, it's hard to turn down someone who might be a great fit in all kinds of ways, but you know hand on heart isn't right for you. But I think this is really at the core of self-trust and self-honoring, and one of the most important and consequential decisions you'll make in your life, who you partner with. And it's why really settling for something that doesn't fundamentally give you what you need is a form of self-abandonment. And so I share that partly just to give you a window into what my personal life looks like, but also to bring these things up because I know with lots of the guys I work with, that these challenges also come up for them in different ways. Because we often talk about luck in dating, and some luck is just about meeting the right person at the right time. Some people meet the person in the 20s and spend the rest of their lives together. For others, they're older, or they find, then lose love and find it again. A friend of mine who'd been saying forever he was so happy being single met someone a couple of months back who is now his first boyfriend at 38, and they're really, really happy together. But there's also the kind of luck that's about who we are and what we need and how available the right kind of partners for us are. So would my pool of genuinely aligned partners be larger if I worked a regular job in tech, or if the things that made me feel most alive were CrossFit or techno or Sunday brunch or something else that's super popular in our community? Maybe, but that's just not who I am. That's not the person that I am. And that's obviously not me knocking any of these things. It's just to say that if you also feel like someone who has identified that your well-matched partner is someone who's rare in this community, that's okay. Because there are all kinds of factors here that really do make dating easier or harder for some people. Geography, lifestyle, age, even things like living with a disability or chronic illness. But again, for me, I've met enough people in my life who were aligned in the ways that I need, and the connection was mutual, that I trust that someday it will click and that will be that. Does it mean it's always easy waiting? No. But meanwhile, I'm living a really full life. I'm always looking out for promising new connections when they do present themselves. And one day, if and when I do click with someone in the right way, will that suddenly make me a completely different dating and relationship coach? No, it'll inform and ignite my work like all of my personal experiences have. And honestly, I'd much rather be the relationship coach who had done the work and was comfortable waiting for the right aligned connection to come along than the relationship coach who said yes to something he knew wasn't right. So that's where I'm at right now. But of course, this isn't just about me. It's also about how we as a community think about singlehood more broadly and how we can look at it with more nuance, perspective, or just compassion. For starters, we really need to reconsider the idea that singlehood is some kind of punishment or failure, or just a sign that someone is automatically not ready for or even worthy of love. This is often a societal thing, not just a gay or queer thing. There's often this unspoken belief, or sometimes clearly very spoken belief, that everyone should be partnered, it's always better to be partnered, or just wanting to be single means there's something wrong with you. And that's not true. Some people definitely are happier single. Some people value the freedom and independence of singlehood and don't want the responsibility and compromise that come with being partnered. Some people don't have space in their lives to truly invest in a long-term relationship, or just don't want the benefits of a relationship. And this is all valid too, whether it's a short or long-term decision. And obviously some people are partnered but definitely aren't happily partnered. And it's kind of wild. We often see success in the partnered part more than the happy part. You know, a great relationship will fill you up in all kinds of wonderful ways, but also the wrong one will drain you in all kinds of ways. And you know, I can tell you from the work I do as a coach, I've worked with people who've quietly wondered for years whether they're in the right relationship for them before really confronting that thought. And that's not to say that every relationship is secretly unhappy, but some are, often in ways that are hard to spot from the outside. But also being single, and even being single for a long time, is not always a sign that someone isn't ready or capable of being in a long-term relationship. Sometimes this is just because the right aligned and ready person just didn't come along for all kinds of reasons. But another reason is that as queer men, we often do develop emotionally later. We often come out. I don't always love that term, but that's the one we have. And then we have to go on this journey of growth and self-development before we're truly ready to embrace the kind of love we want. There's so much more I could go into here, but the headline is that even if it's tempting to automatically equate partnered with worthy and single with unready, it really is more complicated than that. Because sure, as a relationship coach, obviously a big area I work on with gay and bi men is relationship readiness, how you make great new connections and make sure you have the capacity to let in the relationship you want. In fact, with clients, I often do a kind of relationship readiness audit at some point, and we think about the real measures of how ready someone is to connect deeply with others. Let me quickly go through some of them. So first, how open are you to new connections? Are you open to meeting new people, getting to know them, genuinely letting someone get to know you? And second, how clear are you on what you truly want? Can you identify your non-negotiables, your nice-to-haves, the things that actually don't matter so much to you? Third, how much are you connecting in line with what you truly want? Are you putting yourself in spaces where your type of partner is likely to be? Are you saying no to polymatch partners early, or is it harder for you to walk away for some reason? Fourth, do you have a broadly optimistic opinion about love? Have you concluded that there's nobody out there for you? Or even though dating is hard and frustrating sometimes, do you trust that somebody is out there? And finally, do you keep working on yourself to make sure you stay open to new connection? How good are you at moving on from rejection or disappointment? Can you self-reflect on connections that didn't work out in ways that don't close yourself off to love or lead you to conclude that you're not worthy of love in the first place? Because if you answered most of the time or yes to all of the above, that's a sign that you probably are open and ready for love. And anywhere you didn't, those are probably your opportunities for growth or reflection moving forward. And so, yeah, often in my coaching work, it is about working on these things, but sometimes it's also about how you stay optimistic about navigating the no's and the not quites while you're waiting for that life-changing hell yes. But the reality here is that this is all nuanced, and as a community, we're often not very kind to ourselves in how we think about it. We project a lot of shame onto ourselves or others for being single. We often feel a need to prove our worth through our relationships, and we often blame people individually, but never our overall dating culture if someone isn't succeeding in love in the way they'd actually like to. But what if that isn't always helpful? And what if the truth is both messier and more hopeful? So if you are someone who is more single than you'd like to be, just a few final reminders. Nobody's value rises or falls based solely on their relationship status. Plenty of people live full and fulfilling lives without a partner. Everyone's timeline is different, and you only have to make that one aligned connection for everything to change. But more than anything, singlehood is never proof that someone is simply unworthy of love. For some, it's a choice. For some, it's a phase of growth. For others, it's just a holding pattern. And it's long past time we started acting like that. So that's a wrap on this week's episode. If the episode especially spoke to you, I'd love to know in the YouTube comments what resonated. How do you feel about how we view singlehood as a community? Did anything I say especially shift the way you think about it? And yes, if you do want support with making better or more aligned connections, whether that's about how you show up in dating or just how you stay grounded and optimistic while you do, you can find out more about working with me at bettergaydating.com. Thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with another core topic in gay dating, why gay men ghost, and I'll see you then.